r/askreddit, what dark secret are you hiding from everyone? I witnessed my fiancé's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My co-workers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fucked up I am. I have a secret fantasy life, populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now, and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it all stop. Last Christmas I leaned my sister and I don't have the same father and are technically half-sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now, but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mom to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s. Then she met my father and they started dating and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister and I'm keeping it that way, and if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap I just tell them, it's a long story. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy-looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening. But she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever, I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again my stomach would get really bloated even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to kill myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old disordered eating habits unfortunately. 2 years ago one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a duck ton of Xanax. On June 8 we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up, he didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the drugs that killed him, and I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. When I was younger I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18 her health started to decline, that sort of decline that you know means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months I did my best to take care of her. Getting her to the hospital when she needed. And other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore though, to watch her live with so much pain, and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. It's heartbreaking hearing of so many people who were sexually assaulted as children and feeling like they have no option but to hide it, lest it cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other close ones. Just want to let all of you affected by this know that if you did go public, you're not the cause of any conflict, no matter how anybody else paints it. You were the victim of one of the most heinous things one human being can do to another. The source of conflict is all down to whoever perpetrated the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours to live with. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left that there. Not proud. My PTSD isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my coworker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. I'm no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping I'll hear the scream he made in the distance and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. My brother and I did a 23andMe. We discovered we have a half-sibling, same father, who is older than us. I messaged them but no reply. Since the half-sibling is older. It was during my father's military career, which was short-lived because he got a dishonorable discharge that he hides from his family still. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception, the whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. I never have other plans that I just can't cancel. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year daughter told me he was having her perforate oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy and spent the next 15 years being a mother. Paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him I was shocked, devastated and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. In middle school I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect. But I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I googled his full name. It freaked me out at first. But I've kinda gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40+ years ago. He will retire soon and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. My cousin raped me when I was a kid and to this day I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. Everyone in my family is nagging me with the fact that I don't want to date girls anymore and think that I'm strange or gay. But I lost my girlfriend, which I assume I could have a good life with her. She committed suicide and I never talk about that with them. I know I can speak with some members of my family but my parents are different. My uncle owned an old Camaro that collected dust in his garage. When I was around 10 my family and I were in town visiting and I wrote the word fuck in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb so that the letters were fatter than my normal index finger. A few hours later my aunt/uncle asked us who did it and I proved it wasn't me by showing how the person who did it had bigger fingers than me. Taking that shit to my grave. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity. At age 5 my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for a few years, and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing or if they still are doing the thing. Funny, light-hearted story from my childhood. My little brother was in the shower, I could hear him singing. I put a coat on backwards, and a stocking cap pulled over my face, and waited outside the bathroom door. He opened the door, still singing, and dancing kinda. And I did the Frankenstein thing. Arms out, moaning, ugh. He screamed and fell backwards, knocking the toilet completely over. Water went everywhere, the top of the toilet tank broke, shower curtain ripped down, and him laying on the floor in the middle of all this. I ran back down the hall, coat and hat off, and sauntered back casually. By then my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone is like, you know, what the hell. I've heard him tell this story as proof of the existence of ghosts. To this day, little feller is now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 kids. He believes in ghosts. I don't feel a bit bad. I've been an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day, every day. Before work, at work, and after work. I'd occasionally fall asleep on my lunch break or leaving work and have to make up some illness to friends and fam who were concerned. Today marks 185 days sober. My grandmother has dementia. She's been dying for years now. The woman she was before is entirely gone. My grandfather is still convinced she is there, talks to her, tells us he thinks she's getting better. She's not, and he's deluding himself. She doesn't laugh anymore. Or remember anyone's names, and can barely eat. In my eyes she is already dead. Still alive to everyone else. I wish this husk of her was gone so I could remember her as she actually was, and so that I wouldn't have to watch my grandfather or the rest of my family delude himself. When my grandpa was on his deathbed, he admitted to killing fellow Marines in the Vietnam War for torturing and raping young girls. Most of our family doesn't know. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up, lol. Thank you for all the awards. My grandpa was a pretty cool guy. Very calm and mellow, so my mom and I were shocked when he admitted this to us. He was a gunsmith his whole life and was very proud of being a Marine, but the guilt he carried from the war made him believe he was being punished in the end. He died a really painful and traumatic death that I would never wish on anybody. I hope it lets him rest easier in peace that the majority of you commend what he did. I certainly never held any qualms about it. I love my kids so much, but I hate being a parent sometimes. I miss my life before kids a lot, and I hate saying that because I really do have great kids. They're just a lot. My girlfriend started selling used pants and stuff online. Someone wanted used insoles from her shoes. I walk for about 6 hours at a time at work and often just put her insoles in my shoes. Those perverts are getting off to the smell of my sweaty feet thinking it's a girl. Sometimes I spend whole meetings wondering how they got the big meeting table through the door. When I was very little, early 2000s, my sister's friend had this big Pikachu plushie that she really liked. One day, we were attending some sort of event at our school, and for whatever reason, I took the Pikachu and hid it in a filing cabinet in a random classroom. As my family and I were leaving, I saw her frantically asking her mom where her Pikachu went, but I never said anything. To this day, I still feel absolutely horrible about it, and almost want to track down this girl who I haven't spoken to in years and apologize for what I did. It's not a dark secret, I guess, but sometimes while I'm on the train to work I try to mentally do whatever the opposite of road rage is. Like I'll pick a person and aggressively think at them, I hope you get a crazy big tax refund, or I hope you stumble across $20 on the sidewalk, or I hope someone compliments something you're normally insecure about. I think maybe I'm trying to balance the karmic scales or something because it seems like so many folks do the opposite without really thinking about it too much. Hope you Redditors get a really comforting hug next time you need it most. That I feel greatly unaccomplished, as if there's always something missing, something that should be there that isn't, just gaping in need of distraction. Constantly bored. I don't want to do the normal grind. Waking up insanely early and commuting and all that. I just want an easy minimum wage job, live in a shed and be a lazy useless piece of garbage. I'm a Sikh by religion. We are supposed to keep all our hair and not shave any of it, including facial hair and body hair. I want to shave my beard and cut my hair, as I don't like how I look now. It affects my confidence. Parents will never agree to cut my hair. I'll have to wait till I graduate and I get a job. No one knows where I'm at other than my sister. After my mom passed, I just threw a dart at a map and moved to a new state without telling anyone. I've basically started a new life out here. I think a few people know I'm somewhere in Michigan, but that's about as much as my sister has really let slip. The change has been very good though. Between my wife and her family, I've surrounded myself with much more positive influences. A light-hearted one. My mum is going through a divorce and he's refusing to help her financially despite the fact she was a som for years, both their decision, and now only has a very low-paying job. I don't live at home anymore, but my 4 siblings do, and due to the money situation, which included him telling his 13-year-old daughter, Christmas is cancelled, and refusing to pay for their food or anything, we decided to just get one present each. I've been secretly shopping the sales for months and stockpiling bits and pieces for them so they won't come down to that just one gift. Maybe it's superficial, but I just want them to have one good day in this shitty year. We're at the end of the video. Let me know which story or comment you liked the most. If you have any stories yourself, feel free to share yours. I upload once or twice a week, so make sure to stay tuned and support me by subscribing. Until next time.